So we're gonna go through a whole lamb and show where all the parts come from. This is a 72-pound lamb, which is pretty typical for a retail lamb. So we can see this is where the head used to be, the atlas bones right there, shoulders, loins, back legs. So we'll separate all of this out into cuts. So I'm making a cut right here on where the dip on that back is to separate out the sirloin from the loin. So these two legs right here is the sirloin, and then the leg of lamb, and then the hind shank. Can you see from there when I'm cutting this stuff? The whole leg of lamb that comes in. Now we have this sirloin piece. Here's the flank piece, and then the leg, and then the hind shank. So we're gonna take this flank piece out first so we can prep this leg to be cut. There's some kidney fat, leftover kidney fat on here that we're going to trim out to get this all ready so that it's ready just to cut on the saw. So the first piece coming off right here is the sirloin. So from this right to the tip of that H-bone, we're going to be cutting the sirloin chops off. So next will be the leg of lamb. You can do a half, which you would cut just right under where that H-bone is across, and then cut the shank off. Or you can cut this into round bone chops. So round bone chops would just be cutting all the way down. This customer does not want, they want whole legs. So there's the whole leg, shank removed. We'll do the same thing with this other side. So I'm going to prep this flank. This can go into ground lamb, or you can save it as a flank, or you can do it into stew meat. This one's just going to be ground. And then I'm going to take this shank off just right above where this knee is. Okay, next we're going to separate out this shoulder. So right where this shoulder bends through, I'm going to cut right through here to separate out the front shoulder and the breast and the neck and the front shanks from the loin. Okay, so now I'm going to divide these two pieces in half. So with this, now we have the saddle piece, or the center cut lamb chops, which go to about right here, and then regular loin chops. You can do a rack of lamb out of there. There's the lamb skirt steak, Here's the rest of that belly piece, the navel. So we're gonna separate off right here. These are our lamb riblets. Come from this section. So this will just be trim. And then we cut this in half. So that way we've got a little rack. We'll chime off the sternum bone. So from this whole lamb loin, we can get rack of lamb. These are the center cut chops that will come off this back end. Move this excess. So I'll cut a few chops off of the front. So cut through these rib chops. And then I'll cut the center cut chops off the back. And then their rack of lamb, I'll take off this chine bone. You can adjust if you want longer. If you want longer ribs on your rack of lamb, you can just adjust where you're cutting there. Okay, so now on the shoulder, we have the neck. So this neck will cut off square with the back. And that can be done into soup bones. We can cross cut, get some more neck pieces out of that. Split this in half. Now we've got the front shoulder, the bottom shoulder section. And then the lamb shank. So here's the front lamb shank, the front shoulder piece, and the shoulder roast. This half we're going to do shoulder chops. Then we can do shoulder chops out of this piece as well. Okay, so on the whole lamb, now that it's broken down, here's the neck. So we've got those. It's really good for soup bones and stock. Here are the shoulder chops. Here are the shoulder roasts. Here are the front shanks. Then we've got all the loin chops. There's the loin. Here's the rack of lamb. And then center cut chops. And then we've got the sirloin chops. And then the leg of lamb. And then the hind shanks. And then here's the rack of ribs. You can do those two different ways. And those are most of the retail cuts. So still missing, you can do round bone chops out of these legs and stew meat out of any trim and ground lamb.